keys either. It's just the forward and back.
Top line the laser.
If I wanted the laser, okay. Bottom
Guarda,
one,
aperta.
who knows? Yeah. Um, good. And I can actually see it. I'm so impressed. Well, I hate when they go to conferences and they have it like across the floor and I'm completely blind and then I can't see. You know, it's like great. So I have the computer. I have the drone.
So I recruit. So we have two options. I have some clinic students who I employ, and then or we can get even so if we have people not
Okay.
keep them.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have people buying on as well, like
I like fear rock.
yeah. So like I will just be there,
Yeah.
and back and this could be more fun, or we could just have people.
Pretty cool. I mean, the other thing is too in Sam. I was thinking if they were just. But I like. I have a speech.
Charlotte or Mari has kids.
Okay. Just pen.
So I asked her yesterday, I'm like, you do not show. And she brought me like little remnants.
Still looks impressive.
So we could do that. I was thinking, as we
Yeah, I was gonna say is there a break between these two?
we could do well, there's a break between a coffee break and a break. So the setup right now because we're using Zoom. It will be the content of the notes that are here. I don't know. How long will that? I don't know if we can turn around, but there are the notes visible here. No, because if we put it there, well, that's what will be seen. It's already so what I see here, I can see the one that's doing the transmission to there has but this one here is what is royalty. And then when that's the one I have there. That one's gonna scout. Right. And then the one is the big one now. And then I use that for a lot of times. Yeah, so that little one would be oh wow. Is that VGI? Many two or three. Yeah. Because then you're doing can you
Okay, thank you.
wait, can you go back? Let me put yours and see what happened. So let me get the
Data.
I'm gonna fit in slideshow.
What? Right. What?
So those are the ones with your videos and
Ah.
see if you can start it when you want.
It's okay. Thank you. 14h45.
I'll plug it in when it's your time because right now I can. You can leave it. I'll put it in when it's yours.
Test, test. Good afternoon. I think we're ready to start this afternoon's session. Those of you who are not here are missing out. But this is an exciting session. Friday, the 8th of November, the last day of GCFI, the 77th year. Woo! So this session is called Science and Innovation. So we've got some really interesting things here, and I'm going to be excited to offer these talks. The first one is by a person named Jen Locke, and the talk is called Fishery Science to Smile, S-M-I-L-E. And the talk is about using camera-equipped citizen scientists to estimate fish lengths in situ. Jen, are you here with us? Not close enough. So do you turn her on? Ah, perfect. She's quiet.
Which stands for Size Matters Innovative Length Estimate. As fisheries professionals, we know how important size data such as length is to stock assessments because it can reflect population age structure and change, reproductive potential, and biomass, among other things. But traditionally, lengths are obtained through harvest, through direct or indirect fishing methods, or from handling and releasing of the fish, such as I'm showing here with this too big of a snook for too small of that ruler. But this can result in the loss of the fish directly from harvest, or it can induce stress to those fishes that are released. In addition to that, these methods limit the distribution of sizes and species that are represented in stock assessments. So an alternative to this and to address these challenges, there are some existing in situ methods that can be used to obtain fish lengths. However, they're typically limited to professional scientists. So for example, we have the well-known RVC, or Reef Visual Census method, where you can see the T-bar that's used there to estimate fish length. We also have camera technologies such as the stereo video camera, which is a dual GoPro system that is calibrated, and it utilizes a specific software to obtain the fish lengths in post-processing. And speaking of calibration, there's also the laser caliper method, which utilizes similar camera technology with two specific lasers that are calibrated at a specific distance and utilizes software to obtain the length of the fish. However, these methods can be a bit bulky, and they can be challenging to implement with other types of methods to enumerate fish, and particularly by non-scientists. One way that we can actually continue to build on this is through citizen science, where we use trained members of the public to help collect data and get involved in science projects from various components. So they've been able to contribute to scientific projects across diverse taxa and disciplines through such things as reporting and monitoring data collections, data management and processing, outreach and education, and getting involved in various aspects of fieldwork. My organization, Reef, utilizes recreational divers, which has been a traditionally underutilized source of data collection to obtain information about fish populations around the world. So they do this by training citizen scientists in fish ID and estimating abundance that they'll do with a fish survey during their regular recreational dive. There is an 85,000 member worldwide member population for Reef, and over the 30 years of the Volunteer Fish Survey Project, we've accumulated almost 300,000 reef surveys that have been utilized in over 250 scientific papers. So the recreational divers provide a very valuable population to help fill some of these data gaps in fisheries, because they spend a lot of time in nearshore waters. So enter the SMILE project. So this stands for Size Matters Innovative Length Estimates. And you can see in the video a little bit how these work, and I'll explain some more of that as we go. But this is using a novel, in situ, affordable, easy to use camera tool with citizen scientists to collect fish length measurements. This is also used to complement the existing reef fish surveys, where they're collecting abundance and diversity data, and will help us improve future stock assessments for data limited fisheries and inform management and conservation efforts. So to do this, we'll use the FishSense Lite camera, which is developed by the engineers for exploration and UC San Diego Scripps Institute of Oceanography, where we have a traditional, typical camera used by recreational divers, which is the Olympus TG6 camera, and its existing housing. We modify this slightly with a cold shoe mount that holds the single laser, and we have a wide angle lens that's used to reduce distortion on the edges of the image. Currently, this project takes place and is focused in the Florida Keys, where we use the FishSense Lite camera with our volunteer citizen scientist divers to collect images of 11 target species by putting the laser, as you see here in this image of a stoplight parrotfish, on the side of the fish and capturing images with it in burst mode. To compare that, we utilize the existing stereo video camera methods used by scientists to do paired dives, where we have the same fish in both the FishSense Lite and the stereo video images, as well as roving stereo video cameras and a 30-meter belt transects. However, for the sake of brevity, I'm going to focus on the paired dives today. The target species for this project are basically any large grouper that a diver encounters, as well as hogfish, and gray or mangrove snapper, mutton snapper, and then as an ecological indicator, we use 4 species of parrotfish: rainbow, blue, stoplight, and midnight. These species have been identified with our South Atlantic Fishery Management Council partners for species of ecological and economic importance. So those that are targeted by the fishery, as well as ones that are good indicators, particularly for the reefs in the Florida Keys, which would be represented by our parrotfish species. For the stereo video data processing, so this is the dual GoPro system, it utilizes a very specific data analysis software called CGIS Event Measure, where we can estimate click on the length, the head and tail of the fish in both cameras, and it will estimate the fish length, providing length data as well as range, XYZ plane, as well as other quantitative metrics as well. The fish light sense light method relies on depth of field technology. So this has been done with our partners at Scripps Institute of Oceanography and the Engineers for Exploration, utilizing a single laser method. So the way that this works is with depth of field, things that are farther away appear smaller, and things that are closer up appear larger, just as you would perceive things at any distance. But the position of the laser in this image can indicate how the distance away that a fish is. So in this particular image, I have a laser on a fish that's a little bit farther away. If that fish comes closer, the position of the laser moves in that image. So the dotted circle shows where the laser was when the fish was farther away, and the position that it's in now where a fish is closer up. So that information gives them the distance away for where the fish is in the image. And with an AI workflow, they're able to identify the head and tail of the fish. And with data in the raw image file, they can compute the amount of pixels that the fish takes up from the head to the tail to compute the fish length in fork length in millimeters. So looking at some of these paired data that we have, on the x-axis it looks a little wild, but these are just basically individual fish. You don't need to worry about the details of what reef it's at and what species and its ID, but that's what all that means. And on the y-axis we have mean fork length in millimeters. The tannish color is the fish sense light camera, and the blue is the stereo video camera system. So there is some variability across individual fishes. The error bars are standard error, which is generated from the burst images for the fish sense light, and then taking multiple lengths with the stereo video system. Generally, they're pretty similar in their length estimation. There is no statistical difference between them, although the stereo video system does tend to measure a little bit larger. We're currently processing through some of our known fish size, like our fish model data, so that we can see which camera is closer to the true value. One way we can validate these methods is through using objects of known size, like different fish models that I can take underwater in the pool or in the ocean, like you see in this image. Might be a little confusing to the natural fish, but we have a figure here showing the similarities in the two camera systems compared to a fish model that was 605 millimeters, shown in that dotted line across the top, where we have the fish sense light camera still in tan and two of our stereo videos in blue. So both of these camera systems do measure really similarly to the true value. We're continuing to process these data as well as across our multiple fish sense light cameras. One of the challenges that we have on this project is with our lasers, as they can be prone to flooding or have attenuation issues. So to address that, we are working with our partners at Backscatter to develop a laser that has options to either be a dual parallel laser mode or single laser mode, which can also reduce any of the calibration procedures that we have before camera use. In addition to that, it would have a rechargeable battery, so we don't have one of these sources of laser flooding. And lastly, we're also developing a more robust mount to hold these lasers, and with the idea of it being adaptable to other camera models as we scale this project up. A major component of this project is, of course, the citizen scientist participants. So to date, we have had 37 different volunteers that have participated in over 230 total dives in the Florida Keys. And a lot of these are actually repeat divers. So that really speaks to the experience that they have on this project and the sentiment that they have in getting involved with it. The cameras have also been on 5 reef survey trips across the Caribbean, as well as on one of Reef's research project trips to the Cayman Islands for the grouper spawning aggregation. And we are also going to be partnering with local dive shops, which is already in the works, to implement workshop training and so that they can opportunistically take cameras out with their clientele. To continue to assess how citizen scientists engage with this project, we have been partnering with folks at the Colorado State University and Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to develop a formal social science survey to assess the motivators and barriers to participation in a project like this with conservation technology, as well as assessing the demographics for our target audience, which would look at things like diver experience, age, where people live, what their education level is, among other things. We also have a post-participation assessment that has similar questions to those above, but would also ask questions about camera performance and use, and any factors on the dive that would influence that. So some of the types of questions we are looking at is what would most motivate somebody to participate in the project? Is it trying something new, contributing to management decisions, policy change, participating in science, just developing a new skill and having fun with it, outdoor recreation and discovery, community involvement? We also have scales with Likert scales to assess how interested or willing somebody would be based on different questions, such as the one in the middle that says what would be your level of interest using the camera as part of this project. That might be part of a pre-type of question, and also asking things about what type of training that they would like. So we can really kind of cater the project to the divers that would be most interested in participating, but also maybe work towards ways of divers that are a little bit more hesitant and how we can address some of that population. In summary, the Cameron systems, the fish sense light that's been developed for this project, as well as the stereo video methods that are currently used by scientists, are comparable to each other to generate fish lengths across the 11 species that we've been examining. And we do continue to process those data across sites and time. And we've also had a very positive citizen scientist response. 100% of responders think that the camera is easy to use. 2/3 of them think that it can be easily implemented in Reef's existing fish survey project. So as we move forward with this project, we will continue to advance the camera technology, first with a new laser and camera mount, and ultimately to be able to get it on other camera systems, as well as further automating the AI processing so we can be more efficient with the processing of these length values. And we are also going to be developing a data application and management platform. We don't entirely know what that looks like just yet, but to have an ability to process these data more efficiently and have some accessibility to citizen scientists and our end users. So with that, I would like to thank our amazing team of volunteers, our charter captain at Forever Young Spearfishing Charters, our funding partners, and as well as our collaborators on this project, of course, Scripps Institute of Oceanography at UC San Diego, and our engineers for exploration, the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council, along with our data partners at Socorro and Axiom Data Science. So with that, I would be happy to take questions in person, or you can send them to my email address, and we also have a QR code to our project website. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jen. Really great talk. Unfortunately, I think we're running a little behind, so we're going to take you up on your kind offer to reach out to you for questions by email, etc. But we do have another talk coming up by a gentleman who I just met yesterday, Sander van Lopik, who's going to talk about a really important expedition in Bonaire. This is some pretty cool stuff. Fish egg research in Bonaire. Thanks.
I wanted to start with asking if you're... Yeah, but I have a question, so we can... I have a question. If you can open the WOVA app and look at the poll that I made. And the question is, are parrotfish hunters or grazers? And I think it's fun if as many people can answer that question, and then we will cover that at the end of the presentation. There's no right and wrong, that's what I can already tell you. So, to start, I have to introduce myself. I'm Sander van Lopik, and I started as an aquarist in the Rotterdam Zoo. Almost 8 years ago, I also did some WWF projects, and I also worked in Burger Zoo. And there I learned how to work with corals in captivity. And I think that is a huge advantage if you work in an ecosystem afterwards, because you get to look at animals up close. And why focus on fish? Well, this is a picture of my home aquarium. The fish that you see here is called Hardy. And the most fun part about this fish is how we look at these fish. So this is, we call a lawnmower blenny. And I always say, we look at an ecosystem from the helicopter, but sometimes we don't know what the fish themselves actually need, or for example, how their life starts. And it's quite important because we know they have a role to play, but if it's too far away or we just don't know how to act, sometimes we don't do anything. And I think the start of the project that we do on Bonaire right now is identifying that we didn't know shit, basically, and then see if we can improve it. And I think that's also quite cool, because that gives another insight, for example, if you work together with fishermen, because we both want to build up an understanding of how this fish life works. The cool thing, on the other hand, is also we already know, if we have an aquarium, that it's very important to put fish next to the corals. Otherwise, the corals won't thrive. But in conservation, because we don't know how to breed them that well, we don't tend to work on that too much. And I think that's a shame. And basically, that's what this project is all about. We just have to try to not only build the house, the coral reef, but also build the residents, the plumbers, in case the toilet breaks down in the house. You know, it's very important to do that. And why focus on fish? Well, the example that I want to share is the reef fish. I always say we have gardeners. You have a coral garden, and as we know, coral is an animal, there's an algae living inside, and algae at its own will always grow faster. So we need somebody to cut the weeds. And I think if we do this together, next to reef conservation, we are actually trying to build cities instead of just thinking cages. And it sounds very weird maybe from someone from a zoo, not to think in cages and do ecosystems, but I think that's very important to do. Because, for example, reef fish can prevent phase shifts, and we already see this. If there's a lack of grazing fish, if there's a lack of parrotfish, there's no foundation for corals to actually grow as a juvenile and then up to the beautiful colonies that we want to see. So I thought, let's switch things around. So what we built was an aquaculture system where we want to do anything possible to make sure that we can replicate what the fish actually needs in nature, use what we already know from aquaculture and aquaria, but move along with the fish. So basically what we do in research most of the time is adapt the fish to us. We put them on land, in a lab, and I think we can switch that around if you try to make sure that you have the lab in the sea. Just move along with the fish. I don't think we do that too often. And there's some very good advantages in that, because you don't need to use land space. There's already energy there because you work on the ocean and you can use the sun, you can see the solar panels on the, I call it the UFO, unidentified floating object. And you can keep the parents in the sea, and I will tell more about that later. It gives us a harder job, but in the end, it gives us what I call the expedition, and it makes us experts in a very funny way, because we are trying to start at the beginning. And that's when there are eggs. And it's exciting. There's multiple puns we can make here, but let's go on. So what we are trying to do is we catch these eggs, we take pictures, we do DNA analysis, and we build up our own artificial intelligence to help us choose to take a sample, yes or no. Before we went to Bonaire, there were 10 scientific papers where I could find pictures that were decent enough to use for our database. Have that in mind. 10 pictures of pelagic eggs. 80% of all fish spawn pelagically. And it's quite weird that we didn't research it that much. And actually, I think that's also a bad sign, that we have a whole session about spawning aggregations and we just don't know how the fish look like at the first day. That's weird, right? So what we did is we built our own nets. I always say it's a bump chart frame, so we can hang them on the buoys of the Stinapa National Park. If a boat runs over, the net is not damaged. And at the end, we have these bottles. We can screw them off so we know which egg was collected at which place. So we can also try to identify where these eggs were released. I always say, if you're an intern at our place, you get fit quite soon. So we did a lot of this swimming. We swam to the buoy every morning. We hang them overnight. So in the afternoon, we hang the nets, get the samples out, and we take them to our lab. And we try to simplify everything we do. So the idea behind this is use a pretty basic camera. It's basically a computer. You can see the blue thing on top. And with this, we can also do measurements. So every picture that we take is also a measurement. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. So we already took more than 7,000 pictures of fish eggs. And the coolest thing is sometimes you really don't know what you're looking at. But if we do DNA analysis, we can build up a reference so we know which egg corresponds to which fish, identify spawning grounds, and hopefully in the end, breed them a little bit further in our breeding system. Like I said, if we want to breed, we also need to measure. We need to understand how it actually works. And the coolest thing about that is we do a lot of things for the first time. So this is one of the first aquaculture systems for fish larvae that is actually totally adapted for the sea. And the coolest thing is it's totally off-grid. So all the only thing that is connected to is a mooring, and the rest is all off-grid. So there's a lot of technology involved. We do this together with the Technical University of Delft. And basically, I always say, I'm not a scientist, I'm an inventor. For the people that read Donald Duck, I'm the weird bird with the lamp above his head. That's my best job description I can give for now. But the coolest thing is, I say for us, it's always Easter. We find the coolest stuff. This is the best example that I can give. This is a greater soapfish, and there's no literature on when it spawns, how it spawns, but we know it does because they are there. These are the first pictures of the first day of the greater soapfish. And I think that's also quite cool because we can switch things around. It's the same feeling as when you were a kid looking at frog spawn. You know, it's all about curiosity and start from the beginning. I don't understand it, but if we try to understand it together, we can get a better overview on how these reef fish's life actually work. So there's multiple egg pictures, and I think the coolest thing that you can see is there's already difference in the first day of these eggs. We are still working on it. We have to go to over 300 pelagic eggs, and we are now only at 22, so there's still a lot to be done in building up this database, but I think it's already quite cool to see that we're getting somewhere. And also that it's these pelagic eggs are a tactic for multiple reef species. For example, the peacock flounder lives on the bottom, but uses the exact same survival tactic the first days of his life. Yeah, more examples. The Baird hamlet was also never identified as an egg before. We also catch tuna, which is funny because sometimes when I, for example, talk to fishermen, they say, well, we don't fish on the reef. So what's the thing there? Well, the tuna, they release their eggs and sperm on the reef. So yes, we all rely on those reefs. And this gives a way better basis of talking about how we are dependent on this ecosystem together than point the finger. Because we do it the other way around. We already talk about getting understanding of how it actually works instead of blaming each other or anything else. It's very important that you do it that way. Spotted drum. These are also quite cool because these are garden eels. And as you can see, they didn't fit the frame because before I thought the eggs are so small, we can use this frame already, but then there were the garden eels, and the garden eels are the smallest fish, but as you can see, they're huge as eggs and larvae. They even need multiple oil globules to actually float up to the surface. And if you go back then, look at how big this larvae is of the brown garden eel, and we go back to tuna. I think it could be possible that the first days of his life, maybe a garden eel could eat tuna if you see how big the tuna larvae are when they are hatching. It is quite funny. I'm not sure if it actually is that way, but it would be fun though, right? And in order to do this, I say we try to switch things around. I think this is the approach that you need to use in order to get this to work. I call it a three-pillar approach. So we have a nature-based solution. We already have a definition for that, but I think there's something extra on there. Sometimes we don't know how nature actually works, but we know we can lend it a hand, help it a little. And I think that's why 85% of all reef fish are still never been bred before, because we never adapted ourselves to the fish. We only adapted the fish to us. And I think that's a very important principle in trying to understand how the reefs work. Of course, we have to prove this the science-based, but also local-based, because I don't know shit before I came to Bonaire. I needed the fishermen to tell me when fish were spawning, how I can make sure that I could get the system to work. These fishermen have knowledge that's never been written down before. That doesn't mean it can't be science. And that's basically also a very important thing in making sure that you have a good foundation. And I always say, if you have only one partner and he steps out, everything is lost. But if you have three and something doesn't work out, you have the other two pillars getting you up there again. And I think that's very important to work like that. Probably you already saw the poster, I just show it again. It's in the WOVA app, but I want to state to you, new life gives hope. And the fact that we didn't measure new life and thus hope gives us a new perspective. Also from the fish side, if you can't catch these fish eggs, you know they are resilient enough to actually reproduce themselves, even if you don't see the fish themselves. I always say, we saw some spawning aggregations, but there are also a lot of sneaky fuckers out there. Then I have for you the funniest video I think there is. This is a parrotfish. If you want to find this on YouTube, you can't find it. It's hatching from the egg. So you're actually looking at one of the very first images of the birth of a parrotfish. And I asked you to fill in the WOVA app. Can you put up your hand if you think it's a grazer? Can you put your hand up if you think it's a hunter? Yeah, you're cheaters. No, the funniest thing is we only know since 2 years, and here the zookeeper comes back. We only know since 2 years that parrotfish need cyanobacteria in order to break down the algae that they digest on the reef. So you can also say that they're hunting for cyanobacteria. And it's funny because if we only know this for 2 years, how can we understand an ecosystem if biology and ecosystem don't meet up too much? I think that's the conclusion that I want to give to you today. Make sure that we take different perspectives to understand the ecosystem in both humans and animals. Are there any questions? And sorry if I talked really fast, but I wanted to tell so much in 15 minutes.
Well, the good news is that people will be around later, and in spite of the speed of your speaking, I think we're out of time, and my job, unfortunately, is to keep us moving.
Next year, I want a whole session.
No problem, no problem. It's at the bar, actually. Beautiful, beautifully done. You touched on all kinds of things that are important to many of us. So for the next talk, we've got Kimberly Baldwin, who's going to talk about waves of change, coastal resilience with a participatory UAS approach. And if you've been watching Kim's research over the last several years, it's amazing. And so here you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm a talker too, so I'm actually going to hit start so I have some idea on the time wheel. So I just want to welcome everybody for coming today. I can't, unfortunately, get into a lot of detail, but I decided to keep it kind of light for Friday afternoon. Please come talk to me after. Also, I'll share some links. A lot of this information's online. I'm really, as you'll realize, participatory GIS participatory approach is a huge part of my work, revolves about sharing and communicating information. So almost everything I do is publicly available. A lot of my webinars, my student webinars that I'm going to present today, we make live streams. So if you want to learn more, I'll give you some links later. You can follow me. So I put this first slide up here because I've been approached by a lot of young scientists in this room, and I've been coming to GCFI for over 20 years now. So I just wanted to quickly give you some context about who I am because this is central to my approach and my work. I'm a marine fisheries biologist. My first GCFI was Shalha, and I started in the Turks and Caicos Islands doing conch and lobster fieldwork diving. So I have a strong history in marine ecology, mapping and monitoring, and dive surveys. I actually started at the Turks and Caicos School for Field Studies as an intern. So I have a long history of being a field practitioner and fisheries. But over the years, I went to Cermes, I did my master's, my PhD. I started really getting a lot into GIS. I actually am a self-taught GIS person, analyst, and I became a lecturer in GIS. So I'm just giving you this context, is I have a pretty diverse background in environmental management, specifically coastal marine management. And so I did my PhD, and I've presented all of this work over the years at GCFI in participatory GIS, which was setting up a transboundary marine GIS across the countries of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which includes 50 islands and lots of little communities. So we spent about 6 to 7 years with over 1,000 stakeholders, mapping the habitats, the resources, livelihoods, space uses, conflicts, issues, etc. This was a project with the University of the West Indies, but also the Sustainable Grenadines Project in Union Island. That being said, the approach that I'm going to show today actually stems from my PhD, stems from all of these years. I firmly believe that in order to achieve environmental management, we do need to take a widespread collaborative approach, and education, outreach, and community involvement is key, especially to obtain the socio and economic information. So over the years, I had developed a lot of a really amazing collaborative participatory GIS data information, and I've actually done marine spatial plans in several Caribbean countries. Spent 4 and 5 years, Pedro Bank, Barbados, or not Barbados, marine spatial planning, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, Antigua, I could go on. Anyhow, they were great projects, but I got frustrated because a lot of great information and data was collaboratively being made, and it really was not properly being used. Maybe bits and pieces. And the more and more I worked in the Caribbean, especially teaching at UWI GIS, working with tons of government agencies in this room with GIS, I realized there was a bottleneck. There was a lot of great information, but people were not taking the time to train people to appropriately, on the ground, that lower level use of data and information. So about 10, 15 years ago, I shifted my career path from doing marine spatial plans and creating great collaborative data to teaching and training and capacity building, and working with my stakeholders to get them to understand how to use data, how to apply a participatory GIS to create data, and build those partnerships to work together. And so this was great. I went out, but GIS is hard, right? Has anyone in this room used GIS or tried to learn GIS? How many of you consider yourself an analyst? You are proficient. Okay, there's like about 2 hands still up, 3 hands. Exactly, this was my problem. I would have master's students a month, 6 months, and they still could not do it. But then in 2015, drones came out. And immediately, I saw this and I was like, this is gonna be a game changer. This technology was cheap, it was easy to use, we were able to get high accuracy information about the coastal marine environments of the Caribbean, which we couldn't afford many times. And so it also allowed us to fly, process, and analyze data. It was just a game changer. Many of you have seen this. This is the drone sargassum monitoring protocol, which I have developed. I will not be talking about this today, but I can talk later. But what I found after doing, I feel like a second PhD in drones, is that they are extremely accurate, they are non-technical, affordable, and I could train people in 5 days that had never touched a drone how to go out and fly safely and effectively, but use drone photogrammetry software to create geospatial data. And this was amazing. On top of that, it's cloud-based. A lot of this data, the processing, so you didn't need the fancy computers. You didn't need all these bottlenecks that we were having over all my projects and all these field work over the years. So I worked really hard to understand workflows and develop a methodology that could work, I'm talking about the drone tech, but integrate it with that participatory GIS approach that I had been applying over the last 15 years. So I call this my participatory UAS approach. And so really this is the same as my participatory GIS approach, but it's really taking this user-centered, demand-driven approach to collecting, creating data, also working together to come up with effective management solutions. So when you take one of my participatory UAS, GIS approaches, I see many of my ex-students in this room, they know this story far too well. I really focus on critical thinking, trying to get my students to take an ecosystem-based geographical approach, but also understand the various social, economic, and ecological interactions within an ecosystem. And then also, it's using this collaborative approach. Not everybody in this room has all the data out there, right? So it's really finding out who and brainstorming with people within a country, because everybody knows different people. So building these partnerships, getting people to work together to share data, collect data, and come up with solutions is really central. What I've also found is this is a longer-term approach. This is not going to obviously happen in a one-week quick and dirty project. But over time, over the last 10, 15 years, sometimes I really get emotional because I've seen how this has strengthened governance on multiple scales and levels across the Caribbean. I'm passionate about this approach in terms of effectively being able to push the needle, especially after seeing this morning's depressing sessions. So my approach is actually, like I mentioned, it's a longer-term approach. It typically starts with a one-week intensive boot camp. It's 8 hours a day. We learn everything about drones as well as flight planning, but really that ecosystem approach, the various stakeholders, and the types of data that we need. So I guide my students through, depending on their application. And I'm going to show you, I've done this for agriculture, coastal, fisheries, climate change. I've even trained Flow Caribbean how to apply this approach for telecoms. So the mission planning, and then going out and determining which flight surveys are appropriate for different audiences and what types of media are going to affect your different stakeholders. So, and then how to create useful data and information. So the mapping data, the GIS data, that's great, right? But also other data for your various stakeholders. A fisherman is not going to resonate to a GIS map the way a GIS analyst. A minister or a politician is going to need another sense of media. So I try to guide my students, and so they're learning drones, but they're really learning my PhD. They're really learning how to apply this collaborative approach. So then I leave my students, and they're usually kind of heartbroken because they want me to stay with them, but I have to cut the cord, and I let them go apply these skills on their own. So I coach them and I guide them. I also have an online, thanks to COVID, training academy, where my students have materials and they set up their own site. Based on their application, they go out and step by step over, I'll show you different projects, the length of time. I also give them support by Slack, and I have guidebooks, pretty Canva guidebooks as well to guide them along. And then the last part is not just going out collecting data, it's really how do we analyze the data and how do we share the data in the various ways. So I train them how to create, yes, all kinds of cool GIS data, but also how to export a variety of different data sets. Again, I'm not teaching GIS. I might be teaching ArcGIS Earth or Google Earth, but the #1 request after my trainings for students, what do you want to learn next, is GIS, which makes me smile as a GIS lecturer, because you don't usually hear that. And then how to share this information, whether it's in a PDF report here that you can see, or sending, 360 drone panos WhatsApp to their friends. So this is sort of the process that I walk my students through. So now I just want to showcase some of the projects, and I'm just focusing today on my coastal marine projects. I could go on for 5 hours about different ways drones could be used. So what you're seeing here is an example from earlier this year. I trained the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources in the Bahamas, as well as National Trust and BAMSI and the GIS unit were on the team. This is one of their final projects. They have to create a video, an outreach education video. And they also have to do drone mapping at their sites. On average, these FAO sites, in a matter of 3 months, they'll map anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 acres in their country. All right, I've done this training cohort in 5 countries. I'm gonna be doing this in St. Kitts and Nevis next year, if anybody's here. And, oh, I thought I was getting buzzed out, like, time's done? Okay, so 90 people and 20 agencies. So just showing you the various types of industries that are usually on the team. They're almost always multi-sectoral agencies. This is a recent example from Barbados. Hurricane Beryl hit the fisheries complex. So you're seeing here on the left, and it's swiping over after Beryl. So you're able now, my students did this at Fisheries Division in Barbados. They went out, they mapped this, and you could see a list of some of the various other coastal marine applications FAO's used. And then on the bottom is the 3D view from the drone photogrammetry software of the analysis the Fisheries Division did to assess damages. Here's another example from South Coast. The Fisheries Division there developed a South Coast disaster risk management map. So the first was the elevation model. This is showing their annotations. So you can see, if anybody's done my GIS class, there's that metadata wish list that we sit down and we brainstorm before. We identify what sources of information are out there, and then we go out and we map it. So that map was done by the team there, and it can all be exported, not just in GIS, in Excel, tables, a whole variety of ways. Here's another example from Bahamas. And I'm just going to quickly show the rest. Biospace, OECS. Here's another one from Trinidad. Oh, no, sorry, Nevis. So this is beach profiling is what she was looking at there, and the quality of the mangroves. And then more recently in Trinidad, I've done 2 projects there, and this is Moruga. So the last step is the students say their monitoring strategy. And to close, just the scalability of what and who has been trained. It's my last slide, Will. So as you can see, this has had a lot of impact, and I am quite pleased to say I get messages like this all the time from teams. So thank you very much. I just also want to say that this approach does achieve all 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals as well. And if you're interested, there is a paper I can share. It's also uploaded on the Whova app that Patrick McConney is a co-author on. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Kimberly. Yeah, it's phenomenal work, I urge all of you to talk to Kim and to get involved with this kind of stuff. It is amazing. I saw this talk 2 years ago and jumped on it. Got my own drone. I've been doing all this stuff, and it's fabulous. So thanks very much. So anyway, the next talk is from Damien Chevalier. And this is super cool. I've never heard anything like this. He's going to talk about the response of sea turtles to vocalizations, opening up new perspectives to reduce bycatch. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello everybody, my name is Damien Chevalier. My presentation will focus on the sea turtle vocalization as a solution to reduce bycatch. Okay. Fisheries have been highlighted as a major source of bycatch and mortality for diversity of marine vertebrates, such as shark, sea turtle, seabirds, and marine mammals. The modernization and intensification of both artisanal and industrial fishing has exacerbated this mortality. Bycatch and death of the species is due to different fishing methods such as troll, longline, drift net, gill nets, boats, and traps. All these fishing methods pose a threat of sea turtle across all life stages, including juvenile and adults. Recent study indicates that turtle bycatch in small-scale fisheries, particularly guillemets, may be responsible for the much, if not more, sea turtle mortality than the larger-scale fisheries. In a context where the small-scale fisheries occur in coastal water worldwide, that could explain that close 2 million sea turtles are caught annually in gillnet alone. In Martinique and Guadeloupe, gillnet traps mainly cause of mortality of 1,000 turtle by year. In this context, the impact of bycatch on fishermen, not only sea turtle, this impact of fishermen and their fishing activities represent for fishermen hazard, material destruction, wasted time, moral weight due to the stress related to the interaction with protected species. In this context, it's very important to collaborate with the fishermen to find innovative fishing gear, limit the impact of sea turtle while maintaining economic returns. In this context, two projects was born. The first project is Topaz, tortue et pêche accidentelle vers des solutions de réduction efficientes. And the last project, Recapted, begin this October. What solutions are available to reduce bycatch of sea turtle? The first is a visual deterrent device called VDD and acoustic deterrent device ADD. Need to carry out this test. This study need the test of VDD and ADD. Today, I just speak about ADD in Martinique. First step, it's important to study the existence of vocal production in sea turtle. In first, the description of the vocal repertoire of juvenile green sea turtle and define the parameter of this vocal production. Before study a turtle, we have need to catch this turtle with sea diver that see in the video. The captured turtle tagged with hydrophone camera and follow during 2 days. This tortue released 10 minutes after catch on the boat. The first result on this study is the evidence of underwater vocalization in green turtle and also communication with other individuals. 11 vocalization highlighted in these spaces. Are you ready to listen to this sound? Look the video, please. Now, let's at you again and pay attention of the neck. In this last video, you look at interaction with a turtle between two turtles. It's a communication entre these species. The last one. Now, I present you some examples of different sounds that we able to record. And for fun, listen to them again. Among these sounds, we selected this squeak. This sound is a squeak, alertness. And the second sound selected is the rumble. This rumble is recorded during the night aggregation of the sea turtle on the foraging area. The first step is a playback test in green sea turtle with these two sounds. You see the schematic illustration of acoustic test. You have POPS, observation platform, PACO, acoustic platform. During the playback, we follow with the diver the reaction of the turtle. No reaction, keep eating and resting for the turtle. Significant reaction, alertness, escaping, watchfulness in the picture, white picture. When the turtle is in alertness, she's the position light in this picture. She's alert light, a dog. This is the sound of a rumble, in the example of the sound sent during the follow. In the right picture is the recording the behavior of the green sea turtle during the emission of the sound, rumble and squeak. Remember you the posture of turtle during alertness. This in white picture. Okay? You have so the reaction of the turtle at this sound? Okay. The result. In the graph that illustrates the effectiveness of the sound on the behavior, the squeak result in 61 of the turtle reaction. For the rumble, we have obtained 95%. Donc, all the reaction of the turtle at this sound is okay. For your information, we obtain 0% of reaction with synthetic sound playback. These results were published in the scientific report of journal Nature in July 2024, Open Use Perspective for Bycatch Reduction of Sea Turtle. But this is a starting point. First step, we must follow the acoustic test in grey sea turtle, but also hawksbill, oliveridae, laserback turtle, and follow actually the hawksbill and laserback turtle. In the context where probably millions of sea turtles accidentally caught in the net each year around the world, this project is very important to follow on the field in the next years. Thank you very much to the fishermen and collaborators involved in my research program for the conservation of sea turtle and for sustainable fishing. Many thank you, the fishermen of Martinique and Guadeloupe. Thank you for your attention.
Wonderful, thank you. We've got time for 2 questions. We're going to also have a turtle squeaking contest later on.
I can try something. Thank you, Damien. My name is Nicolas Parentoen, for those who I don't know. And I'm coordinating the National Action Plan for Sea Turtle Recovery here in the French West Indies, including Saint Martin, Martinique, and Guadeloupe. So that's the kind of project we strongly support, because it's really important for us as a top priority to reduce bycatch. And a question I have, now we have perspectives with the green turtle, is that for the hawksbill, for example, can we expect similar vocalization? And if we do, would that be related to same emotional reaction than what we now know with the green turtle? Thank you.
Thank you. Recently, we have tagged the hawksbill turtle with a camera hydrophone, and the sound recorded is a squeak similar at the squeak of a turtle, with a frequency, different frequency and modulation of the sound.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question about the fact that there are going to be a lot of tourism that are coming on the beach, and we know they are diving with turtles. Do you think we can use like just hydrophone, put in the sand on the spot of the turtle and listen to it, and maybe now that you discovered this sound of alertness, join this with the, I don't know the word in English, but dérangement of turtles, disturbance of turtles.
J'ai pas compris le début, j'ai pas entendu.
En français.
Et je répéterai en anglais, je répondrai en anglais.
Juste, est-ce que tu penses qu'on peut utiliser des hydrophones qu'on pose dans les endroits, voilà, au niveau des plages, pour reconnaître le son des tortues, donc l'alertness, et faire un lien entre le tourisme, du coup, et le dérangement des tortues?
Oui. The sound of alertness recorded during the disturbation by tourists. Donc, this question is very important. Donc, yes, you can use this hydrophone on the foraging areas and the OC foraging areas en priorité.
We have pretty much out of time. Is it a quick question?
Yeah, my question was about sample size. How many turtles did you record from with the tag on the back, and how many did you do the playbacks with?
How many turtle? In the 40 turtle tagged with camera hydrophone, and for the squeak and rumble recorded, and 20 turtle with recorded the test of synthetic sound of 20 turtle. Zero reaction with synthetic sound.
Well, thanks. Go ahead. Thank you so much. Wonderful talk. Round of applause.
Sorry for my English.
Nicely done. So our next talk is going to be virtual, presented from Shelly Ann.
Thanks again for meeting with us.
The next talk is going to be from Shelly Ann Cox, called Development of a Bespoke Fisheries Information Platform for Barbados. And apparently you guys have the presentation online. Thank you.
Thanks again for meeting with us. You know, we look forward to our 2-week meetings where we discuss our brand new bespoke fisheries information platform, where we're evolving to a platform that helps us serve the industry better, as well as help us internally with our research and development program. Today, though, we have a guest, GCFI. This is one of the largest fisheries-related conferences in the Caribbean, and it's being held in Guadeloupe in the French West Indies. So we're pretty excited to have them in our meeting today, and over the next 10 minutes, we'll give them an idea of the process we've been undertaking in the last few months.
Hi everyone at GCFI, I'm Christian Payne, the software engineer on the project. I've been responsible for building the database as well as the actual software components. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Hi, my name is Adriel Japman. I am the developer of the legacy system of FIS.
Hi everyone, my name is Jaleesa King. I'm the fisheries data analyst and I'm responsible for inputting or putting in insights into the catch and effort data form in the fisheries information system.
When I first came to fisheries in 1998, we were running an application called LRS and TIP. That application was developed by CRFM and was being used by the fisheries division and other persons in the Caribbean. It had 3 tables that were being used on the vessel side, vessels, owners, and fishers, and that was the totality of what we were collecting in relation to information on vessels. The TIP side, I was collecting the landing statistics. Those 2 applications was the totality of our database at the time. We couldn't go beyond what was built into that application at the time. So later on, another application came along called CARIFIS. That one expanded the landing statistics information and increased the amount of information that we could have collected with the vessel side of things. During that exact same time, in Barbados, we had started the process of re-registering all the persons in the fishing industry. The level of data that we collected from that application form for re-registering the entire industry put us with a slight little problem. We weren't able to mash the two together, the data from the forms and the structure of the CARIFIS database. So what we ended up choosing to do was to create an access database of our own, that we could put in all that information on the fishers and query it. But then that posed a fundamental problem of having to maintain 2 databases, 2 data sets. So what we decided to do was to migrate everything from all these different database sets. We moved to one system of FIS. We were able to bring all that data in one location except for the landing statistics. CARIFIS at the time was doing an excellent job in relation to that information, so we didn't migrate that. We just figured out a way to migrate some of the vessel data into CARIFIS, and decided that we would keep the 2 segregated for that point in time until we can figure out the application coming together as one.
What's the motivation for change? Why are we transitioning to a bespoke FIS platform? There was a strong need for a centralized system to integrate diverse fisheries data, need to enhance our efficiency and promote data-driven decisions.
So, welcome to the new FIS, everyone. One of the first key features that we've done is that we centralized data integration. What does that mean? It means that we're taking data sources from no matter what platform that the fisheries employees actually use to help our clients here. We take that data and we integrate it into our new platform. We don't do it by appending the lives of the actual fisheries employees. We do it seamlessly under the hood. So the second thing that we do really, really well is integrated data collection. We've taken several of these survey instruments, things like vessel inspections, things like fish and catch landings, and we've actually built those directly into the platform to ensure that the data collectors don't ever have to leave the FIS platform to be able to put in data. And this eliminates the need for data cleaning and other data engineering activities. The third thing that we've done is added automation and analytics. So what this actually allows us to do is all that nice data that's coming into the platform clean and already ready to do analysis. We've already started to automate some of our reports, like our fish landing reports, which will go to our stakeholders at the actual central bank, and we've also automated some of our other reports that might be going to some of our stakeholders in law enforcement. Right, and this allows us to not only just focus on servicing our customers, but also advocate for funding in other environments, because we're able to do our analytics and our business intelligence much faster. So the final thing that we've done, which we think is very, very interesting, is that we are the first fisheries in the entire Caribbean to offer APIs and data integrations to not just universities, but also interesting parties who would like to build services to serve our fishers. By doing this, we believe that we're creating an open and free environment to allow our fishers to get the highest quality service possible.
Now that you've seen all the key features of the new bespoke fisheries information system, I would like to talk a little bit about the benefits. And they're not just benefits for us here at Division. They are benefits for policymakers where they can access data to inform decision making. For researchers, it offers rich data sets. Even fisher folk, it improves market access and delivers real-time information on regulations and management strategies that we will be employing. And for the general public, it ensures transparencies in fisheries management and provides educational resources. So everybody benefits.
With the new FIS system, we aim to address 4 key problems. The first one, integrated data management. What does this mean? It means that if you have your data stored in disparate data sources, it's going to become very difficult when you want to bring them together and do some type of data integration or data analysis. The second thing is that the old fishery system, the legacy system, had certain functionality issues which made it cumbersome to share with other users in the platform and also made it difficult to find data in certain regards. And the third thing is that we've made it real time. Meaning that if a law enforcement agent is in the field and they need to use our systems, they can actually do so and look up information in the system and quickly get the information they need to perform whenever they're doing their jobs. And then the fourth thing is that we've made it more accessible to people outside of fisheries and outside of the traditional ecosystem. We've opened up the data for the first time to universities and to students and to other interested parties who want to create value for the ecosystem.
And there is significant impact on stakeholders. From us as a division, it improves our collaboration and data sharing internally. There are lots of benefits for community as well. It supports sustainable fisheries management and promotes economic growth. Government agencies, it supports economic studies to determine our contributions to gross domestic product. And external stakeholders can access necessary data through the stakeholder portal, and this increases transparency and promotes communication.
So what does the bespoke fisheries information system look like in the future? So we're going to have some digital tools to help with automating reports and also to generate vessel inspection forms and catch and effort data forms. So this is a part of the future for this platform, and this ties into enhanced data access. So organizations such as the Coast Guard and the Marine Police will want timely reports on matters concerning IUU fishing. And as such, once we have these reports being automated, we can get it to them in a timely fashion. We're also looking into systems integrations of APIs, which are application program interfaces for our vessel monitoring and our electronic observer program from Shellcatch and from Remora. So this will be a part of the future of the FIS. We also would like, in light of Beryl, to keep communication channels open with the fisher folk. So we're looking to develop an app to keep them informed, and when they have inspections, they can also get upcoming notices about this. So this is the future of our platform.
What's our long-term vision? Our legacy platform was built on managing various operational tasks. It was built on technologies used back in the 90s, but now we're transitioning to new technologies in 2024 that will improve efficiency and productivity. The old system had limited functionality that is much improved, poor integration, but we've had addressed this in this version. The outputs generated for the last system were limited. This new system will allow us to export automation in terms of reporting. We will have a facility for certificates to be exported, as well as vessel inspection, duty-free concession reports. Our vision is to see permits and licenses being issued on the platform for fisher folk, aquaculturists, seafood markets, and businesses as well, all stakeholders along the value chain. And the last point that we're really excited about, which sets us apart from other systems in the region, is that we want to monetize our data requests by using API keys so that we can support the sustainability of the platform. It takes resources to build and maintain such a system over the years. The legacy platform did that for 20 years, and we want to take it 20 years into the future. Well, that was a very productive meeting. I thought that it was good to hear, how we're really building towards a legacy of over 30 years ago, and how the new technology integrated could help us do our job much better. I hope that the attendees at GCFI enjoyed us sharing our experiences, and we look forward to updating them next year when we will have our mobile application launched.
Thanks so much. I think we've got time for one question. If you're there, Shelly Ann. Next speaker, please.
No, hi everyone.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Shelly Ann's on the roll. So I'll be
perfect.
her.
Thank you. Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Do we have a question in the front? No?
Hi there. A quick question. Kim Baldwin from Barbados. Is the database available? Is it publicly accessible? I just looked online to try to access it. Could you give us an update? Is it just in draft? How far is it from being released to the public?
We just started live testing internally with the team. So we are hoping to be live to the public within the next 2 to 3 months.
I've got a question too. Oh, somebody else in the back has a question. Quickly then, are you inputting all the old data that was collected into the new system?
Yeah. We've set up data migration systems which allow us to take the old data, we've converted it from its old format, and automatically upload it.
Awesome.
Using our API. Yeah.
Question in the back, a quick one.
Yes, very quick. Can you talk a bit about the monetization of data requests and who is going to pay? Are folks going to pay the fisheries division for data? Can you break that down a bit for us?
Yeah, okay. So as all of us are aware, and probably better than me because I'm a software guy, there's quite a lot of interest in the blue economy, especially as climate change gets worse. People want to study the migration of fish and how fish are starting to breed and behave differently in these different new weather patterns. And because of the other data sources that we're launching, like our vessel monitoring, and we're also doing some cool stuff with cameras and collecting temperature data and what's not. And the way that we envision monetizing this, as Shelly Ann said, is through API keys. So essentially a university or a research organization would essentially be able to come and go onto the platform, and essentially just like if you were using any online service from the US, you would just say, hey, here's my credit card and I want to use the API key. And who we're envisioning is, as I said, universities, research organizations, and we've had a few interesting requests already. And these typically comes with people who want to make use of the data and build value-add products to support the fisher folks.
Excellent. Super interesting. Good luck with that. Yeah, it sounds like a great system. So our last talk for the afternoon is going to be presented by Emmanuel Van Gogh. Woo! Talk is called Climate Change Restoration of Seagrass Beds here in Guadeloupe, Experiments with Eco Moorings and Transplantation of Thalassia testudum. The floor is yours.
Hello. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Hola a todos. My name is. Yes, yeah? Okay. My name is Emmanuel Van Goot, and I'm a project officer for technical and scientific monitoring at the Guadeloupe Port Authority. I caught a cold last night, so please excuse me if I'm not speaking loudly. Today we are going to discuss about restoration of seagrass beds in Guadeloupe. specifically on experiments with ecomarines and transplantation of Thalassia testudinum. To begin, a few words about the Guadeloupe Port Authority. It's 5 sites across Guadeloupe with headquarters in Pointe-à-Pitre. Firstly, the Guadeloupe Port Authority is a hub for multimodal transport, connecting marine, land, and air transport within local distribution system. Secondly, it's an important player for the land development through its facilities and waterways. And finally, since it gained the status of Grand Port Maritime in 2012, the Guadeloupe Port Authority has managed and preserved its the natural areas within its jurisdiction. Now let's talk about the Life Adaptation project. So it's a proactive approach by the Guadeloupe Port Authority to acquire and deepen knowledge about local themes through 3 ecosystems: mangrove, seagrass beds, and coral reefs. It's a 5-year project that has been extended by 1 year, so ending in June 2025, with a total funding of 4.7 million euros. Part 1, introduction to experiments on seagrass beds. Between 2022 and 2024, the Guadeloupe Port Authority conducted restoration operation on seagrass beds, particularly on Thalassia testudinum, through seed collection, in vitro germination, and in situ transplantation. Subsequently, the Guadeloupe Port Authority conducted these operations at transplantation sites using in vitro culture plants, as well as the creation of an underwater trail to highlight the seagrass beds, and the installation of ecomoorings for temporary boat anchorage. The target species of this study is Thalassia testudinum, or turtle grass, because it's particularly important in the Caribbean for its role in supporting high biodiversity. Part 2, results about the experiments. Before in vitro culture, the seed collection took place at 4 sites, and 2 of them were the most productive due to healthy seagrass beds. The goal was to collect 100 fruits, but 160 were harvested, which represents 1/3 of the total production from these 4 sites. And the in vitro culture lasted it's 6 months, with survival rates of 70% at the end. The transplantation of seagrass from in vitro culture was carried out 2 sites within the Guadeloupe Port Authority jurisdiction, with different environmental conditions. One at Île-à-Cochon in Pointe-à-Pitre, Guadeloupe, and the other at Folens in Marie-Galante, Guadeloupe too. After 1 month, a tropical storm uprooted the seagrass beds in the Île-à-Cochon site, and at the other site, so the Folens site, Only 4 out of 69 plants remained, resulting a survival rate of 4% after 5 months. Part 3, conclusion on these experimental works on seagrass beds. In conclusion, seed collection and in vitro culture were successful, but the transplantation operations did not yield positive results. Indeed, the stress of the natural environment led to the project's failure. However, the emergence of seedling from vegetative reproduction of neighbor seagrass beds at a nearly dead transplantation site reveals that prioritizing natural vegetative reproduction of seagrass is essential for better restoration. Success. And the last part about the perspectives. Towards a sustainable future, we could firstly implement eco-moorings to reduce the uprooting of seagrass by boat anchors. Secondly, create underwater trails to educate the public about the importance of seagrass beds and protect it. And finally, improve the resilience of seagrass through monitoring and innovation. Thank you for your attention. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram or our website. And if anyone has any question, there's also my email address. Thank you.
Hi, this might be
Hi.
really obvious, but how do you collect the seeds? How do you collect the seagrass seeds?
I don't understand. Whoa.
It's okay.
En fait, c'est ma collègue. Oui, j'ai compris. J'ai compris, but it's my colleague, so I can't answer. Sorry.
Thank you so much for this session. Please. I think we will go ahead and move to the next because it's back to back, right? So we will continue with education and communication session. And the first speaker is Makeda Serju, who is a researcher of the Perry Marine Institute for Marine Science in the Bahamas. Makeda is going to present the ambivalence in the perception of sharks.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Makeda Serju, and with the help of Dr. Carlisa Callwood and the Perry Institute for Marine Science, I have the privilege of presenting to you a comparative discourse analysis approach to investigating local shark perceptions between an island where sharks are protected and an island where sharks are commonly consumed. So this, next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is just a layout of how the presentation is going to be. I'll present my projects, results, discussions, and then questions. So I'm sure that we all know the damaging reputation that sharks have as man-eaters, which is largely due to media depiction. In a study by LeBouche and Litfield, they analyzed 109 movies, and unsurprisingly, they found that 96% of the shark-human interactions were negatively perceived. A fun fact, the one movie that the sharks were not threatening to humans was Finding Dory with the whale shark Destiny. Okay, so this perception is pretty widespread, but in local Caribbean communities, there are differing shark perceptions due to cultural climates, and that is what I am interested in investigating. So you might ask, why would I choose Trinidad or why would I choose the Bahamas? Firstly, I am a Bahamian, you know, so I was like, I know of the Shark Sanctuary, which Candy spoke of yesterday, and it was one of the first regional shark sanctuaries. And I chose Trinidad and Tobago because I learned that they commonly consume shark, and it's a part of their local delicacy known as bacon shark, and I heard it's very tasty. So I wanted to know, like, how the different communities perceive sharks. So for this project, I've selected a critical discourse analysis methodology because I wanted to investigate how people within both regions are talking about sharks. And this methodology compares that. And so for this study, I did a printed media analysis and a social media analysis. For the printed media analysis, I used newspapers, 1,116 news articles. For the Bahamas, I used the Tribune. For Trinidad, I used Trinidad Express. And I looked up on their online platform, Shark. And then for social media, I used Facebook, and I looked up Shark Bahamas or Shark Trinidad, and I was looking at the top 10 results, which were top 10 posts, and then I coded them. So this is the data from the newspaper analysis, and as you can see, most of the relevant articles were about shark experiences or shark interactions. In the blue, you see the Bahamas, like almost half of the articles were about shark experiences. And in the red, you have the Trinidad and Tobago articles. And yeah, so both of them were looking at shark experiences and interactions. And then this is the social media analysis. And you could see that both of them have the same categories, but what happened is, for example, in the Bahamas, it was just about the top 10 posts were just about negative shark experiences and positive shark experiences. And in Trinidad and Tobago, yes, you had negative shark experiences, but most of it was about shark harm and consumption. So I investigated all of the categories, but it's just that these were the top ones. Apologies for the graphic image, but when it came to the comments on Facebook, this is what I found for Trinidad and Tobago. The top coded comments were snarky, like that one about the Dottish religion, which means like stupid in their Creole, I think. And then you have someone making jokes at the validity of sharks, saying that it's not actually shark, but it's probably catfish, which a lot of Caribbean people have a way of not believing what the seafood actually is. And then the most interesting one was the contradictory comments, which, for example, this person said, imagine the same person who was opposed to them killing the sharks are the same people who are going to Mauritius to get a bacon shark. So that was very interesting to find. And then the Bahamas, I found that the top responses were sarcastic, there was positive perception, and then fearful. And a lot of them were like attacks, as you see here, and they were a bit sensationalized. Okay, so in regards to my discussion, for example, 28% of the media data which focused on the lack of policy in Trinidad and Tobago. It's obvious that they are that they're consuming sharks, but it seems as though the locals are, if the locals were aware of the protection measures needed for sharks, they would consume it less. And you see that in this quote by Ali, 2020, where they're like, if we knew about it, we probably wouldn't have consumed as much of it. And then in the newspaper, I found that there were a lack of policy and there were people campaigning for that. So for example, Papa Boys Conservation is a local NGO who, in this picture, actually went to Maracas Beach, which is one of the, it's like the spot you go to for bacon shark, and they were like campaigning for the Shave the Sharks campaign in that country. And then the Bahamas, the focus is on shark attacks, and the conversation around the sharks is, in my opinion, is what is causing people to repeal our legislation. There's as Candace mentioned, they're trying to repeal our legislation right now in regards to shark sanctuary, and that's because there's a lot of conversation about the high amount of attacks that we experience, and some people think that it's due to the shark sanctuary. But most of it, as you can see in here, most of the responses did point towards the attack, but there's also evidence of the sanctuary being extremely useful. So for example, there was site fidelity, and Smukul 2020 found that it's actually a pupping ground, but this infamous shark dive industry that we have in the Bahamas could actually be hindering our sharks, because Humor Schlegg and Hume found that the experiences that they're having with sharks could actually be conditioning the sharks to come to a certain area in the Bahamas, and it can also be counteracting the tourism industry because it could cause a fare, which is why people are looking to repeal the legislation. So next steps. As you can see, these general trends are mirroring each other. So we want to do at Perry a future project that will investigate the factors that locals perceive as contributing to frequent shark attacks. Do the locals think that it is because of the shark sanctuary? Do the locals think that it's because of the tourism? Because we have so much people coming there, the boat engine is attracting them or whatnot. So that's what we want to do. We want to fully understand what the locals think is influencing these attacks, especially because of the legal status of the legislation and the sanctuary possibly being repealed. And then in Trinidad, there needs to be more conversation about the conservation, and then hopefully we would one day be able to partner with somebody else to help us with this. A future project investigating the locals' perceptions of bacon sharks, and are they willing to actually stop consuming or to adjust their consumption to promote shark protection in their waters. So in conclusion, both of these trends mirror each other in regards to consumption and conservation, and in the Bahamas, it's negative shark experiences and protection, but overall, there needs to be a balance between both, and we're only going to know that if we know more about what the local perception is, which is why we are doing these social science projects. I think that's it. Apologies for the jitters. I'm kind of nervous, but I'll take questions now.
Thank you, Makeda. Fadila?
So my name is Fadila. I am from Trinidad, and I was part of the Papua conservation attempt with the Save Our Sharks. And another thing that was done in terms of, I know you looked at the willingness, we did it in an additional way targeting two problems. So what we did is we had lionfish, and we took it to the bacon shark vendors. And although you say there's a thing about the Caribbean saying is catfish, in Trinidad it actually is. There is shark, but they also do sell fish. And bacon shark is a big deal. It is almost like a national dish. Anyway, so what we were doing is that we went to the bacon shark vendors and we gave them lionfish and said, okay, cook it the same way, because essentially it's just a fish sandwich, and you put all different condiments and additives in it, and you make a sandwich. So we gave them lionfish, and then we gave patrons to taste it and say, okay, will you eat this? The other issue is there's a lot of misinformation and miseducation in Trinidad. We recently had a shark attack in Tobago, and immediately they called for a bounty on the specific shark.
Yeah.
And when you look at social media and when you look at all the comments, immediately it's like, yeah, bacon shark for that, bacon shark, we go eat all these sharks. So that is a perception for a lot of people. There are people who are conservation minded, but quite a majority, when you go to Maracas Beach, the bacon shark, there's at least a dozen. That is what people go to that beach for. So there's probably a very long way to go. They do sell fish in addition to shark at these places, but there probably is still some way to go, because there is this perception that sharks, anytime anybody talks, when there was that shark attack, if you look at social media, everybody's like, yeah, we need to kill the shark or whatever. Yes, so you do see the voices coming up like, this is absurd, this is stupid, somebody should put out a better message, but it'll be interesting to check out that sort of discourse.
Yes, definitely. That's why I say we need to learn more about the local perception, because in the Bahamas, if someone tells us you can't eat conch, we'll all freak out. So that's why I want to know more about like the Trinidadian sharks, and if they're willing to step towards conservation. Anybody else?
Yeah.
That's it? Oh, sorry.
No. You stay here. Stay here.
Thank you for your presentation. It was great. I had a question for Bahamas. Do you have local NGOs or like movements, social movements, etc., or conservationists explaining that maybe one of the part of the problem is like the short feeding industry, and all the tourism industry is really orientated towards like the touch, the interaction with the sharks, and so that also conditions the sharks to be really close to the humans and maybe triggering the attacks. So are there people educating the public and even the tourism industry companies about that?
Yes, there are. One of the most widespread, I think, is a local, I want to say he's like a shark expert called Andre Musgrove. He had a very informative video about the problems we have here with shark feeding and the difference between chumming and actually feeding, because our dive store and a lot of the pictures you saw, they weren't chumming the water to get the sharks there. They actually have like a box filled with fish, and they put it on the stick like that, whereas it's not chumming, so it's not like a complete frenzy. So there has been some talk in like the newspaper about them stopping chumming specifically, and that wouldn't really affect the dive industry because they use a feed stick anyway. So that could be a possible alternative.
Thank you, Makeda. Just one clarification about the difference between harm and negative perception, because you had that on this slide, and I thought harm was the shark attacks, but it's not that?
No, negative shark experience is different from shark harm. So for example, on the slide I had with the Trinidad and Tobago social media stuff, the pieces where you saw like actual shark meat, that's shark harm. Okay. Or like how he was standing over the shark with like the shark mouth open, you're actually harming the shark. But negative shark experience is like if you go paddle boarding and a shark bites off your arm. And that actually happened in the Bahamas. Yeah. And that was very sensationalized, but it happens, yeah.
No, it makes sense. It's just like maybe a translation from, I was not sure what it means. But thank you so much, and you showed how, it's important to integrate the perception of people and how maybe that can help to address the management and conservation of the species. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So up next we have Silja Ramirez, who is the director of the Coastal Marine Program for Fundaeco in Guatemala. I don't know if it's online or if she is here.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Silja Ramírez, represento a Fundaeco y este día les voy a presentar Ecoveleros como un programa de fortalecimiento de capacidades para la diversificación de actividades económicas en comunidades pesqueras. Para ponerlos un poco en contexto, pues este programa ha iniciado hace más de 10 años, cuando comenzamos a discutir qué pensaban los hijos de pescadores acerca de la conservación y manejo de los recursos hidrobiológicos. Pensamos, luego de ver tanta información científica sobre el declive de la abundancia y riqueza de ciertas especies de tipo comercial para ellos, comenzamos a pensar qué sería bueno proponerles a los hijos de pescadores para que tuvieran una alternativa económica a la pesca. Es así como nace este programa y pensamos en hacerlo y dividirlo en dos partes, ¿verdad? Sabemos que la empleabilidad en el Caribe de Guatemala es baja y sabemos que los trabajos no hay tanta diversificación, pero sabemos que existen y sabemos cuáles son, ¿verdad? También sabemos que muchos de los veleros en Río Dulce son abandonados por las personas o ya no los quieren y no saben qué hacer con ellos porque tienen que regresar a su país. Y comenzamos a ver esa opción de tener estos veleros como parte de la práctica de estos jóvenes, ¿verdad? Para que pusieran en práctica lo que van a aprender durante el programa. Es así como este programa es una plataforma de formación y capacitación para hijos de pescadores. Son alternativas para la tecnificación y diversificación de ingresos en las comunidades de la zona marino-costera del Caribe. Es un programa que incrementa la empleabilidad de jóvenes en oficios alternos a la pesca. Esta alternativa, siendo esto una alternativa económica a la pesca, pues va a reducir el esfuerzo pesquero que existe en ciertas áreas de Guatemala, principalmente en el Caribe, y vamos a reutilizar los veleros abandonados como parte de las prácticas del programa. Entonces, si nos damos cuenta, estamos haciendo varias acciones vinculadas al manejo y a la reutilización de materiales que ya no se están usando o que están desechados, ¿verdad? Entonces, ¿cuáles son los objetivos del programa? El objetivo principal del programa es lograr capacitar a los jóvenes para proporcionarles habilidades de supervivencia y oportunidades económicas, pero al mismo tiempo poder fomentarles una conciencia ambiental y la gestión activa de los recursos marinos. También es establecer cohortes pequeñas de aproximadamente 15 jóvenes, abarcando áreas protegidas importantes para el Caribe de Guatemala. Actualmente trabajamos con 2 áreas protegidas primordiales, que son Área de Uso Múltiple Río Sarstún y Río Dulce. Y el segundo objetivo específico es poder empoderar, capacitar y dotar de competencias y los recursos mínimos necesarios para poder aumentar esa oportunidad que tengan estos jóvenes para que puedan llevar una vida sana, sostenible y poder convertirse en administradores de los recursos marinos en el Caribe de Guatemala. Como ustedes ven en pantalla, el área de trabajo, pues ustedes están ubicándose en Guatemala. Si ven al lado izquierdo, pues estamos casi que formando parte del sistema arrecifal mesoamericano, ¿verdad? Con la parte de Refugio de Vida Silvestre Punta de Manabique. Y el área que está presente en el cuadro más grande, pues es el área de uso múltiple río Sarstún, donde la mayoría de nuestros jóvenes han sido graduados de este programa. ¿Cuál es el proceso del programa de Ecoveleros? El primer proceso o el primer paso que se debe seguir es el identificar el perfil de participantes. No todos pueden ser parte del programa, tenemos algunos requisitos mínimos que deben presentarse. Les hace un pequeño examen sobre temas prioritarios de conservación, que suceden alrededor de su área protegida. Por ejemplo, si conocen qué es una zona de restauración pesquera, si conocen las especies de peces que pescan en el área, si saben qué es el cambio climático, cuáles son sus consecuencias, si saben de algunas especies como importantes de la zona marino-costera, como lo son los manglares y los pastos marinos. También se identifica que los estudiantes del programa pues sean aproximadamente de cierta edad, ¿verdad? De 13 en adelante, para que puedan tener mejor adaptación y mejor comprensión sobre distintos temas. Y otro de los perfiles es que tengan el ánimo de completar el programa y de poder desarrollar todas estas habilidades prácticas con base a la teoría que se está dando como parte del programa. Luego del perfil de participantes, pues se hace un reclutamiento, y el reclutamiento es que con base al examen que se les hizo y a la encuesta que se les hace, ¿verdad?, referentes a las preguntas que les mencioné anteriormente, se habla con los papás de estos jóvenes para ver si los papás están de acuerdo en que participen en este programa, ¿verdad?, que sería como complementario a lo que ellos están realizando en la escuela. Se necesita una carta de aval del papá para que nosotros tengamos un sustento que está aprobado por ellos, y luego se habla con la escuela, con los profesores, para que puedan ser parte del desarrollo del programa, pero además que les otorguen el tiempo y el permiso para poder completar el programa, que dura aproximadamente 8 meses de capacitaciones, casi que todo el año, ¿verdad? 8 meses de capacitaciones y su graduación. La fase teórica y práctica, pues la teórica, sabemos que vamos a tener un libro donde van a tener ciertos conceptos, y la práctica, pues es básicamente poner esos conceptos en práctica, ¿verdad? Y para eso, pues se elaboraron 2 manuales. Un manual de capacitación que está incluido 7 módulos, que podemos ir desde ecología acuática, salud sexual y reproductiva, conceptos básicos de navegación, conceptos básicos de carpintería, manejo de fibra de vidrio, mecánica de motores marinos, manejo de instalaciones eléctricas, y tenemos un manual de módulos complementarios, básicamente de servicio al cliente y administración, y uno más corto que es la elaboración de una hoja de vida para que ellos puedan presentar sus capacidades al momento de que estos sean entrevistados y contratados por alguna empresa. La práctica, como ustedes pueden ver, o como ya les mencioné anteriormente, es que la donación de veleros o de lanchas para la práctica de carpintería, fibra de vidrio, manejo de instalaciones eléctricas. Nos han donado motores. Nosotros proporcionamos lanchas tiburoneras para la práctica de navegación y la mecánica de motores marinos. Hemos dado certificaciones de Open Water para monitoreo biológico. Se les ha capacitado en técnicas biológicas muy simples para que complementen las acciones que muchas instituciones realizan en el área, y han cooperado en el monitoreo y restauración de manglares. Como resultados, tenemos un total de 216 jóvenes hasta la fecha graduados, 128 mujeres y 88 hombres. Es muy interesante ver que al inicio de este programa solamente se inscribían jóvenes. Jovencitas comenzaron a inscribirse más en número a la mitad del programa, del desarrollo del programa. Son casi 9 años, ¿verdad? Entonces casi que al cuarto año hemos visto ese incremento de jovencitas como parte del programa de Ecoveleros, ¿verdad? ¿Y cuáles han sido los principales logros? Hasta la fecha hemos logrado 9 cohortes graduadas del programa. Esto va desde el 2015 hasta el 2024. Hicimos un stand-by, ¿verdad? La pandemia pues no nos dejó realizar este programa en un año. Entonces, básicamente eso nos quedó un poquito corto. En el año 2021, el Ministerio de Educación, a través de la Supervisión Educativa de Livingston, le otorgó al programa un aval académico para una graduación formal de los jóvenes, para que ellos tengan un certificado que tienen la habilidad para componer un motor, tienen la habilidad para utilizar fibra de vidrio y componer lanchas, Se han elaborado y diseñado 2 manuales de capacitación teóricos prácticos, integrando aspectos técnicos y ambientales, como lo vimos anteriormente. Nosotros solos no podemos dar todas las capacitaciones, así que lo hacemos de manera colaborativa con otras instituciones, como la Escuela Naval, quien implementa el módulo de navegación, las escuelas de buceo, pues que otorgan el Open Water a los estudiantes, y con el Instituto Técnico de Capacitación y Productividad INTECAP, pues acordamos y coordinamos ciertos cursos como atención al cliente y el tema administrativo, ¿verdad? El 35% de los jóvenes del programa que han sido graduados con el programa, mejor dicho, han encontrado nuevas oportunidades laborales, tanto en el tema de turismo como guías turísticos, tanto en el tema de buceo, tanto en el tema de talleres de vidrio y carpintería. Y lo bonito es que lo podemos ver ubicado, no solo los contratan en Guatemala, sino que ya pasan a Belice también a trabajar con otras instituciones o con empresas privadas. El programa de Ecovelero pues cuenta con un plan de negocios para el uso de veleros como una empresa turística para los jóvenes miembros del programa. Quiere decir que cada uno de los veleros que han sido reparados con las prácticas del curso o del programa, pues se les entrega al comité del programa Ecoveleros para que ellos puedan realizar acciones o actividades turísticas con él dentro del Caribe de Guatemala. Esto no puede ser realizado sin nuestros donantes y socios clave, ¿verdad? Nuestros donantes, el Fondo Francés para el Ambiente Mundial y New England Biolab Foundation, y nuestros socios claves, el Ministerio de Educación y el INTECAP. No me queda más que agradecer por su atención y leerles un pequeño fragmento de nuestro manual. Si aprendemos los servicios ambientales que recibimos de la naturaleza que nos rodea, planificamos a nuestra familia y aprendemos cómo organizarnos mejor en equipo, seremos buenos administradores de nuestros recursos naturales y por lo tanto tendremos mejor calidad de vida. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Silja. I don't know if we have one. Yeah, you are there. Okay. Do we have one question for Silja? We have time for one.
Okay.
Sí, muchas gracias. I guess I'll ask in English, but you mentioned that there were a lot of abandoned yachts in the area.
Mhm.
What was the link? Because we do have a lot of other marine protected areas with more hurricanes going through. We end up with more abandoned boats around. What was the link to the boats?
Bueno, realmente muchas de las personas que llegan a Río Dulce llegan en sus veleros y se arruina alguna sección de estos veleros o ya no quieren tener el velero y tienen que regresar a su país, que básicamente es Estados Unidos o alguna de las islas del Caribe. Y comenzamos a ver en lo que trabajamos mucho monitoreo en el área, mucho monitoreo biológico, y empezamos a ver que había muchos veleros abandonados y comenzamos a hacer las consultas si nos los podían vender o si los podían donar, porque realmente nosotros estábamos iniciando un programa que necesitaba de estos equipos o materiales para que ellos pusieran en práctica. Es así como nuestro capitán de lancha se puso en esa labor de ir buscando qué veleros estaban abandonados, con qué personas se deben hablar para que los donen, y es así como actualmente nosotros tenemos 2 veleros que ya los jovencitos comenzaron a componer, ya están en buenas condiciones, y hemos estado viendo no solo veleros, ¿verdad?, sino lanchas que ya no funcionan, que las donen para que nosotros podamos con ellos hacer esa labor de compostura de ese equipo.
Thank you. Can you just tell us what the kids like the most, maybe, the youth?
Claro, sí. Lo que más les gusta es, bueno, es muy interesante que a las jovencitas les encanta la navegación y el tema de motores. Y a los jovencitos les gusta mucho la fibra de vidrio y a ambos les gusta el tema de planificación familiar. Nosotros incluimos el tema de salud sexual y reproductiva para que comiencen a comprender la planificación familiar y cómo esto se integra al manejo y al uso de los recursos naturales.
Gracias, es muy interesante. Thank you so much, Silja. Thank you for joining us online. We're going to move to the last speaker.
Gracias.
Who is Carlisa Calwood, Director of the Community Conservation Education and Action Program of the Perry Institute for Marine Science, and she will talk about the integration of community perception to improve fisheries sustainability.
Thank you. Good afternoon and congratulations on making it to the last talk. I will try to be quick. My name is Carlisa Calwood. I'm with the Perry Institute for Marine Science, and one of the efforts that we are currently undertaking at our organization is to launch a sustainable seafood campaign that has been informed by the best available science in order to help curb consumption of key fisheries species. So as we develop the content and the materials for this campaign, we want to understand what the audience knows about sustainable seafood, their perceptions related to the need to conserve these species, and whether they would even be willing to support an effort like this. So in parallel to developing the campaign, we also surveyed local seafood consumers with the intention of utilizing their responses to craft materials that are very specific to their needs. So the fishing industry in the Bahamas employs over 9,000 individuals and has an export value of $70 million, with the top targeted species being the queen conch, Caribbean spiny lobster, and Nassau grouper. Yet landings for these species have fluctuated throughout the years. Seafood has both cultural and economic importance in the Bahamas, as these seafood items are commonly used to create iconic cultural dishes and they are eaten throughout the year. But we have also seen the impact of tourism, which has led to increases in demand for these seafood species. Additionally, excessive fishing pressure, habitat degradation, inefficient management, and other factors have led to the decline in the population of many of these species. So because of this, our organization, we've conducted extensive research on the Bahamian fisheries over many years, and we frequently use this data to inform policy and government action. However, it's no surprise to most of you in this room that change at the policy level tends to be slow. So we are attempting to pivot some of this effort towards directly reaching seafood consumers to encourage them to avoid consuming illegally caught species, such as things that are caught out of season or undersized, and to reduce consumption of species that are at risk of overfishing, such as Nassau grouper and queen conch, or those that play key roles on coral reefs, like parrotfish. So with this Bahamas Best Catch campaign, our goal is to drive a shift in consumer preference and demand in the Bahamas from those declining traditional seafood species towards more sustainable options and encourage sustainable seafood purchasing and consumption by providing consumers with simple tools to understand the best options available, thereby helping them to make informed decisions that will then shift their behaviors to support sustainable fisheries in the country. So specific objectives of this campaign will include having consumers choose recommended sustainable seafood options, having restaurants and food vendors buy, sell, and promote sustainable seafood species, and having commercial fishers in the Bahamas catch and promote sustainable seafood species, as well as comply with fishing regulations. So we've incorporated both ecological and socioeconomic considerations to inform the recommendations of a range of species to promote their sustainability and developed a simple stoplight system. So for green, these are our sustainable choices that represent the best seafood option to buy and eat in the Bahamas. Yellow are the choices where moderation matters, representing those seafood items that are in decline and that we need to go slow in order to reduce consumption. And red are the unsustainable choices, representing critically endangered species or herbivores that play vital roles in maintaining the health of coral reef ecosystems. So the goal of this particular project is aimed at understanding people's seafood choices and their environmental behaviors, as well as informing the design of this sustainable seafood campaign. So to facilitate this, we conducted online surveys that were shared in March of 2024 via email, WhatsApp, and social media to seafood consumers in the Bahamas. We also conducted interviews at locations where seafood purchasing and consumption is very common. We got a total of 101 responses, which was surprising over the course of this 2 months. And from this, we collected and analyzed both quantitative and qualitative data and used deductive thematic coding in order to identify key patterns, behaviors, and perceptions related to seafood purchase and consumption. So survey respondents were primarily women, predominantly in their mid-20s to mid-30s, with just over half obtaining at least their bachelor's degree. They were also primarily Bahamian citizens residing in New Providence, and they represented a wide variety of occupations, with the top 3 being folks working in the conservation, education, and tourism sectors. In terms of seafood consumption, almost 50% stated that they eat seafood at least once or more times per week, and not surprisingly, the top species they mentioned eating included queen conch, grouper, and spiny lobster. But what was surprising is that when we evaluated the seafood consumption frequency by species, the top species consumed regularly was tuna at 71%, followed by snapper, conch, spiny lobster, and grouper. Now, it should be noted that when respondents were filling out this survey, there was no distinction made between canned tuna and wild-caught finfish tuna. So we suspect that the reason this percentage is much higher is because consumers were selecting that canned tuna for this question. But when we look at, so this was over 48% of respondents said these top 5. But we can also look at the best catch, the stoplight system here, and we can see that 5 out of the top 6 frequently consumed species fall in that go slow or avoid group, with the exception of certain species of snapper. And also that other avoid species, the parrotfish, is way at the bottom of the list here, because this is the least consumed of all the seafood choices. Although it is eaten in the Bahamas, parrotfish is typically not a food of choice for most native Bahamians, but it is preferred predominantly by folks who have immigrated to the country, particularly from Haiti and Jamaica. So there is a need to keep a watch on this species as more people from these countries where that is the fish of choice move in to the Bahamas. We can also look at those foods that were, those seafoods that were in that green category. So we can see that 20 to 30% of respondents are currently eating mahi-mahi, grunts, and jacks, and a smaller percentage of respondents are eating stone crab, lionfish, and triggerfish. Because many of them are consumed regularly by Bahamians, there is an opportunity here to think about how we strategize to actively promote these as options for consumers to consider when we further develop our communication campaigns. In asking about sources of seafood, we did learn that a large majority of respondents are consuming locally sourced seafood, and additionally, most of their seafood is coming from restaurants, supermarkets, family and friends who fish, local fishers, and they are getting it at the docks and landing sites. We also asked some perception and knowledge questions as well. We asked several questions related to the local regulation. So almost half of the respondents stated they did purchase seafood with the minimum catch sizes in mind. A higher percentage make their purchase with the close season in mind. And this is because it is still legal to eat seafood during the species' closed season as long as it's quote unquote frozen. However, it is important to note that 26% and 7% of respondents respectively also said that they didn't know what these terms meant. So it's really important that we focus on educating them about what these terms mean and why these are important. However, we also gave the respondents essentially a pop quiz that asked them to identify which dates were associated with the closed seasons of spiny lobster, queen conch, Nassau grouper, and stone crab. More than 50% of the respondents answered these questions correctly. Most people know the closed seasons for spiny lobster, which is not surprising given the economic importance of this fishery, but the least knew the closed season for stone crab, and there are some people who do think that Queen Conch has a closed season, even though it does not. The other question we asked consumers was we wanted them to define the term sustainable seafood for us. So oftentimes we as researchers and science communicators use a variety of terms and assume that our audience are applying the same meanings and definitions that we are. And sometimes those meanings are different, and that disconnect can hinder our efforts. So it was important for us to understand what respondents are thinking about when they hear and see this term. Their definitions were compared to one found on NOAA's official website, which is displayed here, and their understanding of the definition of the term was determined by how many aspects of this definition was included in their own personal definition. So to facilitate this, we broke this definition into 5 core components. So we wanted them to understand that sustainable seafood is something that fulfills our needs today. It helps to maintain the population. It allows for healthy and productive habitats. It's maintained for future generations, and it minimizes the impacts to local communities. And their responses were scored based on how many of these components they included in their personal definitions. So most of the respondents had some understanding of the term so that they correctly included 2 of the components. Very few of them had a great understanding of the term, incorporating 4 of the components, and none had all 5 aspects. However, it was nice to see that 36% of individuals mentioned minimizing negative social and economic impacts to the local community as a part of their definition. So while the analysis of this question demonstrates there's a gap in knowledge when it comes to understanding what sustainable seafood is, it also highlights that respondents recognize there is a need to be able to sustain their local economies and culture by reducing negative impacts in these fisheries. We also asked a couple of perception questions, such as the state of the fisheries. Most respondents said that they believe that the fisheries are just okay. Additionally, 76% of respondents agreed that the seafood prices had increased over the past 5 years. Respondents were also asked to identify the most pressing issues of concern for the fishing industry. All of the issues that were listed in the survey were considered urgent and a major cause for concern, with the top 3 issues identified as being illegal or unregulated fishing, poaching, and weak enforcement. We also asked if they were willing to support sustainable seafood efforts, and most of them were. A large majority of the respondents stated that they were likely to support fishers as well as restaurants and vendors who commit to supplying sustainable seafood. 86% were also interested in learning more about sustainable seafood options in the Bahamas, with many preferring to receive that information in the form of a seafood guide, app, or video, and that social media, WhatsApp, word of mouth, newspapers, and YouTube were their preferred outlets to receive that information. So some of the key takeaways here. So this study provided a lot of valuable information that we can utilize to guide further development of this sustainable seafood campaign. And I'll separate these key takeaways in terms of implications for the content of the campaign versus how we engage our target audience via the campaign. So in terms of content, it was reassuring to learn that there's not only a lot of interest in learning more about sustainable seafood, but that people will be willing to support and purchase from fishers and vendors who prioritize sustainable options and tactics. We were also able to confirm that consumption is high for those species we are concerned about, and we can prioritize shifting focus and attention in the campaign towards seafood options our audience already enjoys eating, but for which consumption is low. And while many respondents are knowledgeable on closed seasons, and they do keep these in mind, they aren't as knowledgeable on other regulations like size limits and don't prioritize them as much. Additionally, the understanding of what makes something quote unquote sustainable seafood is low. So we have the opportunity here to increase awareness and messaging around why this concept of sustainability is important, what it means to be truly sustainable in terms of having sustainable practices as well as making sustainable choices, and the importance in making decisions that shift behaviors with regards to currently implemented regulations. For instance, sharing why, despite it being legal to eat lobster, grouper, and stone crab during their closed season, it might be better to simply avoid them during those months, might be something we want to focus on. Lastly, in terms of engagement via implementation of the campaign, the results highlighted that several of the communication tools that our audience utilizes the most are those that are not prioritized by our organization. For instance, we tend to use photos more than videos, and our YouTube page is sparse, as we tend to use Instagram and Facebook as our primary modes for disseminating information to the general public. Similarly, local newspapers remain a primary source of information for Bahamians throughout the country, and we need to start thinking about how to better leverage this asset, better to more broadly increase awareness countrywide and share about the campaign. Because of this, we've already started working with our communications and marketing team to strategize how we can better use these options, particularly around engagements for the campaign. Additionally, we can focus on other opportunities to help share information related to the campaign, particularly those that connect to a more word-of-mouth strategy. So WhatsApp is becoming the modern day word of mouth, and Bahamians love a WhatsApp group. So this is an avenue that we can tap into more. We also have the opportunity to expand our community outreach efforts through activities like tabling at events or hosting tastings and cooking lessons to introduce people to less consumed foods. We've already been talking with some hotels and restaurants that are willing to co-plan these tasting events. Lastly, given that our audience is willing to pay for sustainable options and willing to support those providing these options, we can use this as a way to incentivize fishers and other seafood vendors to join in on these efforts to maximize their own economic benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Carissa. We reached the time, so unfortunately, your presentation brings a lot of questions, and at the same time, it's very clear and very informative. But that gives us the opportunity to exchange at the coffee break. So yeah, I'm very happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A round of applause again, please. Very happy to close that session. I think we got a vision of the future here, and it was even better than it was done by 3 women, centralizing people and youth, and not only managers, scientists, because at the end of the day we are all linked to the ocean, especially in the Caribbean. So that's really important. So I hope that you can leave this room with a sense of community and interact during the coffee break. And after the coffee break, there will be the closing ceremony. And I don't understand what's happening.
Yes, please come back for the closing ceremony. You will find out who has won the various student awards. You're going to find out who has won Cinefish. Ooh. And we also have a performance. So please come back. We'll start back promptly at 4:45. Thank you.